Do you like conversation on a variety of topics? Feel like no one wants to talk about the things that interest you? Tired of only hearing the same political, sports, or catastrophe talk? Yeah, we feel that way too. Join two high-functioning geeks as they discuss just about anything under the sun. We can't tell you what we'll be talking about each week because we don't know where our brains will take us. It will be an interesting conversation though, so hang on and join us. Here comes the Relentless Geekery.
Brought to you by Mind Architecture. Building worlds for your mind.
Morning. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Happy birthday to me.
Yeah, I think I was like, he mentioned something last week that we may have to play it by ear this week. And I think it was because it was your birthday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We did just have the Colleen once again outdid herself. She was amazingly generous and
Nice.
And she so much knows what kinds of things I like. So I got some new tunes and some new books and some new things to wear and some new puzzles. And she just really, and it's funny, I need to be able to post things occasionally to our gig here. She does amazing wrapping and especially bows. She makes her own bows. She's gotten all kinds. Exactly that. Nobody handles the turntable like her with her waxed fingers. So
I can see her with big shades and gold chains.
Gold, but it's funny. I don't know. As a brief aside, when I'm trying to imitate a rapper, I don't think that I'm mocking them. I'm trying to imitate them. If somebody chooses to wear a big clock or somebody has the big glasses or something like that, it's not that we're not trying to appropriate their culture. We're not making fun of them. That's what they do to stand out. I need to have like my, was it Deaf Mouse? Not most Deaf Mouse, something mouse, Danger Mouse. I need to have my helmets, or I need to have, you know what I mean?
I think it automatically becomes a mocking parody just because we're old white guys. Old white guys can't rap. White men can't jump. Old white guys can't rap.
Exactly. This is very parody music. Immediately jumps on latest trends and stuff like that. So we've never talked about this before. A couple times I've been to the festival in Chicago called the FUMP, the Funny Music Project.
Right.
It's really excellent. It's not only Weird Al Yankovic, which is probably the best known practitioner, but there's all kinds of other guys throwing toasters and Worm Quartet. And there's so many good ones that I don't want to leave anybody out in my list of who I want to give. There's the, bards, library bards, anyway, all kinds of stuff. And because they really stay current, it really is funny to see, if not old white guys, middle-aged white guys trying to wrap it up, and you look like you're jumping the shark from the word go. You don't have whatever that thing is of, you don't look dangerous, you don't look
I do not see a posse.
Exactly. And yet some of the stuff they do, I like I said, I so much don't want to insult, but there's some people that are really, there's parody is understanding the style, the kind of music that you're making well enough so that you pay homage to it, you sound just like it while you're teasing a little bit, or the lyrics are a different subject matter than what you had started off. So Weird Al is fantastic about that. All of his songs sound like the original stuff. When you hear Smells Like Teen Spirit, it's just the Nirvana version, except taken to an extreme here, you know what I mean?
Right.
There, that kind of thing. And so
he did the White and Nerdy from Charmillionaire, I think.
Exactly. And where he's around going on a Segway, not the most rap thing. So there's a guy named Luke Ski that was one of those like early white guys rapping. And you're like, you're not quite Eminem, but he's really witty. And to me, the most impressive thing about rap is they're great rhymers. You know what I mean? It really is that they can, like, one of the things they often show in movies about people proving that rap is a form of music. I know that's a terrible way to say it, but there's a couple of movies that have scenes like that, and that they're so agile in terms of just lay down a beat for them and they start rapping about a certain subject, and it just flows out where it's got the right rhythms and it's got the right rhyme schemes, and it really is. And it isn't just robotic. It doesn't sound like ChatGPT put this together. There's emotion to it. They really have emphasis on the right syllables so that it sounds edgy. And you know what I mean? I really love people that, whatever that talent is that some people have, Second City has always been incredibly impressive in this way. They just make up a song on the spot. They'll just start singing in a certain rhythm, and it might be that it sounds kind of like Surrey with the Fringe on Top or whatever that song type is. They will just immediately have funny lyrics, and I'm pretty sure that it's not that they have these preloaded and that they just create the opportunity to do things they've already thought of. It really is improv where they just start in real time doing things that have the right to it and the right rhythm and the right. I love it. I love
And
that
I
people are
believe
talented like that in real time. So
I believe I've been seeing it's the 50th anniversary of hip hop, officially saying it's the
I think so. There's a
anniversary.
documentary on it. Exactly,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And you know, rap and hip hop and all that. I know you'll get the metalheads, you'll get the classic rock guys, you'll get the classical piano guys, you'll get the Barry Manilow people or whatever, whoever is saying, oh, that's not music. That's horror. But that's what they said about Elvis when they were coming from big band. That's what they said about Elvis when they went to metal. It all is. And I've been seeing this pop up more and more lately. Just because rap and hip hop is considered a different type of music and an art form of its own doesn't make guitar rock or classic rock or prog rock any less musical or any less artistic. It's totally different.
The bigger umbrella, if you will.
Yeah.
You know what? My biggest, and it's not a criticism, but it just is a fact for me and for Colleen especially, I tend to like melody as much as I like rhythm. And things that don't have both of them don't work as well for me. So when I hear something that seems to just be a beat and variations on a beat, but it doesn't have singing to it, it's spoken word stuff, some of that doesn't seem as musical to me. I like it where it's the combination, because that's just, it moves me differently. It is more memorable to me. It stirs me differently. Right. So there's a number of rap, hip hop, house, jungle. I have dip my toe in because I love music of all kinds, and the best of it rises to the top. Sturgeon's law: 90% of everything is crap. So there really is a top 10% of the best of rap, and so I try to listen. And this is an odd thing too. One of the reasons that I don't necessarily like certain genres of music is I hate being yelled at for minutes at a time. So I don't like death metal, really dark stuff where the guy's got the growling voice and he's yelling at you, and it's not even intelligible. Or that it's kind of, I swear pretty liberally, and yet when a song is nothing but swearing and it really just seems to be incredibly angry, the fuck the police type stuff, I don't know that I love the police more than I love music. So it's not about, oh God, support our boys in blue. It really is just, it seems lazy to me. And maybe, and that's a terrible thing to say, I don't have their experience in life where they really have forever not had police be a good force in their life. They've actually had them be a danger. So I can understand why that has to bubble out in their music when people sing about, folk singers sing about their protest songs or their love songs or whatever else it might be. It's because that's their experience in life. Right. They were there at the riot, and rock and roll is about, you name it, rebellion, maybe a little bit of getting laid, whatever it is.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And so I get that there's different kinds of musics that speak to the various different experiences, and maybe that's why it doesn't connect to me that much, because I didn't grow up in a dangerous place. I understand that I don't want those places to exist, and the thing that can spawn that kind of anger and despair, let's fix that. Let's get that to go away.
Yeah, I think
but it's still not my music. It's just not my music.
Right. There are definitely some rap artists and some rap songs, some albums that I like. There are particular songs I may like of an artist, but not most of the other stuff, or an album or whatever. There may be a few I like of a style of rap, hip hop, but not some of the other artists in that style. And that's like anything. And it's just not my style of music. But I also, and again, like you said, I didn't grow up where I was having to fear the police coming in and beating me or something like that. I didn't grow up that way. So I'd never make a good rap artist like Vanilla Ice, but on the flip side, when you get some of these rap artists that have been around for 20 years and they're approaching their 40s and they live in a $4.45 million mansion and drive Bentleys, I don't know if I really believe that they're like, what they're rapping about any longer is part of their world either.
It's really, rock and roll has always been about rebellion, as you said. And so there's a certain amount of that is exactly the course that was plotted in terms of life experience. And rap had a different experience, but it was still about this world sucks and let's fix it. And let's fix it through maybe like rioting and destruction, not negotiation. So the Police, for instance, had all kinds of songs earlier in their career that were pretty much the shoddy state of the world. They're growing up in Britain when it was at some of its lowest. economic and socioeconomic point and stuff like
You
that.
too, also.
Exactly. U2, UB40. UB40, the band was named after the unemployment form. You know what I mean? So, having said that, what you just said, when you get to be 40 and 50, you just don't have that burn in your gut. Rage Against the Pain has some great stuff, but if they're still doing that when they're turning gray, it's going to seem a little odd. It'll be like a self-parody almost. Sting grew out of the Police. He made more beautiful music and more adult music. And I think that one of the reasons that I've read that they really aren't looking to do Police reunions, if you will, is because it's really hard to put on that really angry shirt again when you haven't worn it for 20 years and you're like, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm not this guy anymore. So there's been a number of, let's see, what's this guy named Rob Paravonian does a great song about not only later when you're 50 years old, but even while you're like, let's say you're 25 years old and all of a sudden you're making a ton of money. It's hard to be in spiritual congress with all of your downtrodden friends when you got the $5.4 million mansion that you just mentioned. You know what I mean? It paid off to be about rebellion. And then I wonder, so who was it? Malcolm McLaren? There's some people that have been amazingly cynical about what's the next group that's going to tell the rest of the world to go to hell that I can put together. I know it's going to sell records. Alice, for a certain point, like he did all that to be the shock rocker that he knew was going to be the one that your parents aren't going to let you listen to this.
Entertainment business, folks.
Exactly that. And he made good music despite it. Some of his albums held up well and stuff like that. And there's others that really seem to be, they're only about the rebellion. And then when they stop having things to rebel about, maybe that's why they have not much left to say. So there's a whole bunch of musical theory going on there, but I think that's really true. There's some people, Woody Guthrie wrote all kinds of protest songs because it was terrible conditions in the United States. And I think that not enough of that changed, that he didn't sing those things like through his 50s, 60s. I'm trying to think how long he lived. And his son, Arlo Guthrie, took on a lot of that mantle because there really still are those income disparities and bigotry and whatever else might be going on. I think you know this, right? Irving Berlin wrote America the Beautiful, and it's a manifest destiny song, if you will, that white people get to take over the world and push everybody else like off the coast into the water. And Woody Guthrie wrote This Land Is Your Land in response to that, to say it isn't about who owns things. It's that we all are citizens and we all own this. And it's some of those things are so, wow, perfect that they are a forever song. You know what I mean? That's something that speaks to the American spirit so much that I don't know that you can be any generation and not still say, yeah, that's how I want my country to be.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. You know, talking about the music, and we talked about this before, sellouts. You could say if the Police got back together, they wouldn't be that funk ska sound. They'd be something adult contemporary, and they're sellouts. No, not really. They're just different stage of life. Music reflects life, and there are and always have been groups put together because it'll make money. Some of the super groups, which of the 70s, a lot of them had good music, but a lot of times they were put together because they're like, we're in between projects with our main bands and we know we'll make money. But even beyond that, we look down upon like the boy bands. They, most of the time, they can't write the music. They learn how to dance, they learn how to sing, and they look good. But
they're the monkeys of a generation later. You know what I mean? They're
I got a trivia fact about the monkeys, actually. But that's not to say that it's still not part of the music scene, because it does speak to some people, and some people enjoy that as part of what music is to them. Let it go.
Some people, like, they sell out stadiums. That's a very popular form of music, is the K-pop from Korea, or the boy band, the NSYNC, all that kind of stuff. I agree, but I always find there's not enough to it, that it is too much, sounds the same.
Bubblegum pop.
Exactly, bubblegum. So it's not my favorite kind of music, but there's very catchy things. And I have no problems with it, except that, wow, it seems a little manipulative to have the Svengali behind it all. You know what I mean? So
it does. But you could find examples, maybe not a whole genre of musical artists created just to be pretty looking boy bands and make money. But you have examples of that all over. Me and Colin were just talking about this. Parliament Funkadelic, a great funk band that was very influential of the 70s. George Clinton That man was a producer. He put the band together to make money and have a sound that would bring in money. The same with the Combat Rock album. Was it the Clash? Or
Clash, London Calling and Combat Rock.
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
I think
exactly.
I could be wrong on that, but they're one of those punkish bands. They were just sitting around saying, what type of band can we put together that'll make us a lot of money? And that right. I'll have to look that up.
Sex Pistols. The Sex
Pistols. Yes, that's
right.
it.
That Malcolm McLaren, who I mentioned a while back, he's the guy that had put together. We're going to have this be just as rebellious and as the formula for what we'll sell to kids of a certain range, because like the God Save the Queen version that isn't really respectful. That's what England needed at the point.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've heard stories of Nirvana, not that some big producer put them together to be that way, but the band had their stage image and then their offstage image, because Kurt Cobain was that emo, gothic, kind of grungy figurehead.
Over the eyes, looking down. Exactly.
But from several interviews I've heard of other people, when he was backstage, he was light, happy, joked around, had a good time. But the audience, like, my whole life is based on you. I'm going to be like that 24/7. But like Alice Cooper, he wasn't like that 24/7.
Yeah. Maybe that. So I love how our things always weave in on each other. Colleen and I are going to go see Three Dog Night on Friday night.
Nice.
I've never seen them live, and I like them a lot. But they're absolutely one of those that, like, whoever was their leader, their producer, was very good. They didn't write their own tunes, and I think some of them, it really is like the three main singers, and they had a fantastic backing band that was kind of like the Wrecking Crew. It was the best of what they had to offer. But having said that, they sure were prefabricated. They bought songs in particular they thought were going to be Three Dog Night-ish, and the fact that there's a dozen of them speaks to the skill with which the people that put that music together said, I know what America wants. A nice 3.5 minute perfect little Joy to the World and One. And like I said, we're looking forward to seeing it because we like so many of those songs, but I have no illusions that it was, this guy's the best guitarist of all time. This guy's the, you know what I mean? It really is a manufactured sound, if you will. And then having said that, on Monday, I can't believe this is so cool, Extreme is back together.
Yes.
It's kind of like ceased to be when Gary Cherone went to join Van Halen for the ill-fated Van Halen 3, when Nuno Bettencourt has been one of my guitar heroes forever. First time I ever heard him do Flight of the Bumblebee on guitar, it's like, is there anything this guy can't play? Him and Steve Vai, we can start going into our favorite, like, unheralded but fantastic guitarists. They're back, and I think it's everybody in the original group. At least it is that voice and that
I'm
guitar.
pretty sure it is.
Right? And the fact that, like, they're more that Porno Graffiti album is so fantastic. That's a perfect album. Not a bad cut on it. So we're going to Detroit to see them with Living Color opening for them.
And I've been listening to Living Color again lately.
Honestly, Cult of Personality, and two groups that really, for the time, were fantastic. I'm getting chills at how excited I am about this show. I'm just so happy that they're still around. And the Extreme did a fantastic thing where they put out a video where they're showing him like being just an amazing shredder with Eddie Van Halen's passing. There's a whole bunch of people that are saying, who's the successor? And some people are saying, look right over here. This guy's been doing fantastic stuff for 20 years now, if not 30. And finally, maybe, I'm sorry that Eddie's gone, but that amazing shadow that he cast over being the guitar player of all time, there's plenty of other shredders. There's plenty of other amazing. Can this guy play more notes? He's just an amazing creative.
So have you listened to the new album?
Yes, exactly. Rebel and everything else. I can't wait to hear. It's funny, Colleen and I were just talking about so many times when you go to a concert, you're like, when they say, and now from our new album, the whole crowd goes, they want to hear it. I can't wait to hear the new album because it's good. Such quality. It's so fantastic. Whatever they were doing to lurk and save up their best material until it came out in a big salvo, a big burst. Man, that new album is fantastic. I can't wait to rock out.
They totally break what we just said about as you get older and life changes, because these guys are in their 50s. That stuff cranks.
Absolutely. Yeah. The contrast between Three Dog Night, it'll be a really gentle sing-along type show. And then I'm looking forward to having my face melted off by these guys rocking out with me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, some of the quality of a band is, am I willing to drive to Detroit, Pittsburgh, Columbus, not only Cleveland? When I looked at they weren't coming to Cleveland, it was like, I'm not missing this. I have to go. And luckily, I found out about him in time, so it was Monday. It really could have been that somehow I didn't find out about the tour until Tuesday, and now they're going out to California.
Yeah, I missed Bare Naked Ladies that way.
I hate when that happens. So that's Colleen got me new music for my birthday, and some of the stuff like one is Robert Plant and Alison Krauss.
Oh,
And
that's a great album.
and what I'm trying here, I can actually do look it.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get the glare off of it.
Yeah.
It's what it was called again? Raise the Roof, exactly. And what an interesting that they discovered each other, that their voices meld or that they take turns so well. They enjoy each other's company. I've not seen them live together, but that's Robert Plant has led Zeppelin and
Right.
some of the great voices of all rock and roll. I thought that he might be the rock and roll voice even more than Freddie Mercury. But Freddie Mercury had different things he could do besides the rock and roll. But having said that, his voice still holds up really well. It's finely aged bourbon or something
Right.
like that. He hasn't gotten scratchy. He hasn't lost his voice. He just sounds like he's still going. And now he's got even more soul in his voice. So can't wait to listen to this. And as long as we're doing this, I got the new Yes, Mirror to the Sky. And
Wow.
same situation. Yes has changed. Steve Howe is still
Wow.
there. And they've replaced many of the other people, like, I don't know, and having replaced, there's still people like Jeff Downs has been in various difference of Yes or Asia for a long time, Asia, but
Right.
30 years. Billy Sherwood's been with Yes for a long time. But having said that, there's any number of bands that are just, now they tour, and they tour what they know the songs that the kids are going to love, and the kids being you and me, that they're oldest fans. And yet, this is getting rave reviews that like, wow, they still had another great album in them. Who knew that you can be like 70? What I mean that you could be like still rocking out at 70, and progressive rock is not 3-chord rock. You got to be able to play. Steve Howe has to be able to do amazing techniques on guitar. He's still got the chops. So I'm looking forward to that.
Isn't it interesting? It just hit me. I'm thinking of it. A lot of the classic bands from the 70s and into the 80s, the 90s were a down point for all of that. That there wasn't a lot of coming out, and a lot of the albums that did come out didn't hold up quite as well. And that's also the same time that the comic book industry was on a big downturn, and we almost lost Marvel. That there's not a lot of good individual comic issues from the 90s that people collect. The 90s were definitely a downtime for pop culture, it seems.
Yeah. You have to seek things out. Again, referencing 90% of everything is crap. There really is that top 10%. So I'm trying to think like for 90s and comic books, wasn't that some of the best Moon Knights? Wasn't that some of the best? There really were certain titles that came to the fore then, and certain artists and writers that if they started or they continued things that were going on in a fresh way. So it's not that everything was bad, but you're right. As an industry, it really started to seem derivative, and they don't know what to do, so they're going to keep churning things out but not making big breakthrough type stuff. I characterize the 90s maybe as being black and white. They flooded the market because all of a sudden you had different distribution schemes and everybody could make comic books because prices came down and stuff like that. And that's especially why 90% of everything is crap, is because not everybody is a good artist, not everybody is a good writer. It takes a talent to write the right story structure and the right rhythms, and that it hits the right, it's got good story arcs and hits right beats, so that you have a cliffhanger ending and you can't wait for it, instead of saying, it was okay. Was Alan Moore doing good things in the 90s?
Yes.
I guess Grant Morrison, like some of maybe they had great odd comics because they were in response to, I've already read 500 Supermans and there's nothing new happening in Superman, but I'm going to do Doom Patrol better than it's ever been done, or something. I'm trying to think. I wish I could differentiate for sure between the 80s and the 90s.
I think the big name comics, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, those type of things, I think those were really taking a downturn for the ones that were the most popular.
Flagship titles were getting tired and they had to do interesting new things over here. You know what I mean? But I'm trying, what Keith Giffen's run on Justice League, and then I'm trying to think of certain things that might be okay. And in music, Tears for Fears did a lot of great stuff in the 90s. Thompson Twins did. When the synth pop bands came along, and maybe that was late 80s going into the 90s, they were like, oh my God, anybody that can play a synthesizer now has a band, and it's all Tainted Love, which I hate because it's so simple and terrible.
Have you ever heard the original?
No, I haven't.
That's actually the 80s. That's a cover. I just recently learned that.
Love the original. Who did?
I'll have to go look it up.
We'll look it up.
Yeah, okay. I just recently learned that it's actually a cover, and the original is a way different sound, because a buddy and I were talking about cover bands or cover songs and how, why do a cover song if you're going to make it just sound like the original? Right. What's the point?
And again, to digress a little bit, I hate covers where it's, wow, you didn't really get what made the first one great. When I hear Drift Away and from Dobie Gray, it's so soulful, and then maybe the newer one is like a little bit too pleasant. It should be more about despair and about world weariness and about finding faith or whatever else it might be. And then some people just don't get it. So here, the next thing I got Kansas. And it's unfortunately, is it upside down? Kansas, the anthology. And I think it might have 1 or 2 cuts that aren't. So that's why it was worth getting. But having said that, Kansas is a band that went away. And I really will rant sadly about this. They went Christian rock for a while. Kerry Livgren really went, him and Dave Hope went very Christian. And whatever was the good depth they used to have in their lyrics up through like Audio Visions, it became oppressively, if you weren't a Christian, it really was like, wow, I'm really being, if not preached at, it softened them or it just made them sound more generic. And when Kerry Livgren went away and Steve Walsh came in and Steve Morse came in as guitarist, who is from Dixie Dregs and Deep Purple, and he won they had to retire the award for Guitar Player magazine because he won 10 years in a row. It's like nobody can beat this guy. They did a couple great albums, and I think it was early 90s, maybe late 80s, Power and In the Spirit of Things and Freaks of Nature, that were some of the really good, a return to good Kansas. So again, I don't mean to belabor, there really wasn't terrible music all in the 90s, but you had to seek it out, and sometimes it came from surprising places where if you had written Kansas off because they got bigger and bigger, went arena, and then they sputtered out, Supertramp, the same could be said of. After Breakfast in America, they never had another great album, in my opinion. They had individual cuts that were really good, like Cannonball or something like that, and I think because Davies and Hodgson split, and whatever dynamic they had, and maybe it was a little competitive or combative, and that's why they split, but that must have lent something to their music that made it that they didn't recapture that. And maybe it's Roger Hodgson. Boy, I hope everybody's taking notes about this because you should get these out. Roger Hodgson had an album called High, if I remember right. No, it's, let's see, that was one, Nature, it's The Eye of the Storm. I have to do that when you have to go through the lyric and remember how to sing.
Come Sail Away, like Cartman.
Exactly, Come Sail Away. So he has a great album that sounds like what the next Supertramp album should have been. So maybe Hodgson was all along really the good part of, and I don't think that, because the band, Hallowell and Siebenberg and Davies, of course, who am I missing? They really did great stuff together as a band. So it couldn't have been only Hodgson, but whoever carried that torch forward, it's kind of out of Styx. It really wasn't Dennis DeYoung. In his older days, he became like a show tune guy, whereas Tommy Shaw and the boys and JY, Jim Jung, are continuing to do rock and roll instead of kind of like show tunes. You know what I mean? We're making it into that, but there's a whole thing about tracing the evolution of groups and how the addition of some people is sometimes a spark plug, and sometimes the losing a key person really is, oh, there goes the soul of the group. And I talked about this before. There's a great book called Rock Family Trees by Pete Frame that shows in a family tree style the various different versions of a band. And so for some things like Pink Floyd, it's okay, Sid Barrett or not, and then you're done. If you look at Deep Purple, there's like Deep Purple Mark 1 through Mark 10. They had all different kinds of different guitarists, different lead singers over the course of time. And Deep Purple's fantastic because when you had Richie Blackmore and Tommy Bolin and Steve Morse, so like all the people that have been in this group, like, man, they always had a great guitarist. Did I miss anybody in there? It's cool then to say, is there a particular version of King Crimson that is my favorite? Because sometimes there's a through line and they sound pretty similar. Sometimes it's, wow, they really did change and became, you name it, more modern, more synthesized. Different versions of Jethro Tull have sounded quite different based on who else was in the band, or when Ian Anderson's voice started to go a little bit and he did a different kind of music because he didn't have the bard of rock and roll range that he used to and stuff like that. So I just recently listened to Crest of a Knave and Broadsword and the Beast, and they're really good, even though they're not that well known. So anyway, again, take notes, folks. You got to get Broadsword and the Beast. Man, Broadsword and the Beast has a great song called Flying Colors about couples breaking up. And there's a lyric in that. Here's hoping I can do this without crying. Did our friends all catch the needle match? Did we want them to? Tell me that isn't in how many couples you've seen that are not getting along. They don't just keep it to themselves. They have to have the fight in front of other people. And it's so uncomfortable, but it's so human to do that, to get your digs in, to not be able to stop when you're unhappy. I don't know. That's a heartbreaker, that one. So anyway.
Got it. Okay, two actual things, and I forget the name. Forgive me. I know this is horrible. Who were the members of the Monkees? I know Davy Jones.
Davy Jones, Michael Nesmith, right? Mickey Dolenz, and Peter Tork.
Okay, so Michael Nesmith, without the monkeys, he was a millionaire anyway.
I
Because
actually know this because the mom invented whiteout.
yeah,
Something like that.
she was a
That,
secretary.
liquid paper or something like that. That's one of those things. As soon as I read that, that was one of the things I wanted to share with my friends in the same way that you're doing now, because what a cool story is
That is cool. It's wow. He gets to be a millionaire for two different things. What about the rest of us? Okay. But the other thing I found out with two of my favorite properties, MacGyver and Rush. So down in Brazil, when MacGyver aired in the 80s, they replaced the theme song with Tom Sawyer from Rush.
That's a great little. So why would they have done that? Is there any, did you read any explanation?
No, that's all I got.
Really cool combination.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
I can see how the lyrics, and that's what's cool about too, because the lyrics, I can see how they fit MacGyver's whole persona and style.
His mind is not for rent, and we call American. Exactly. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And that's funny because so often people don't get the whole context of lyrics to songs as a whole. They focus on a line or the chorus, and that's it. And we mentioned the Police. Sting forever was saying, "Why is everybody slow dancing to what every breath you take?
Every breath you
because
take.
it's about a stalker."
Oh, exactly. It's a song about obsession and stalking. So,
Yeah. So that always cracked me up thinking about that. And it's funny because there's and you mentioned melody earlier. I will like a song, I will enjoy the music and think the melody is great, but I couldn't always tell you what the lyrics were at all, either because I'm not paying attention or they're hard to understand, because it's just that
maybe you wouldn't like the song as much.
Well, yeah, that's true. There are
exactly.
Right.
So it's a testament to America's blindness about that. How many presidents or how many people have tried to say, "Hey, Bruce Springsteen, can I borrow Born in the USA for my campaign?" Have you listened to it? It is not a celebration of the United States. It's about the horrible conditions that we created where people like had to go to war. That was the only alternative they had, and then they died. So really, that's that
whole album. You want to talk about rebelliousness? That whole album is
absolutely
a little bit dark, even though the songs are super catchy.
Yeah, and honestly, does anybody have a better talent than him for taking? I don't know, for starting with "Born to Run." That's an anthemic song, and yet it's got lyrics like, "Baby, it rips the bones from your back. It's a death trap." Yeah, woohoo, let's go. It's in fact, who is it? Robert Wool actually did a comedy routine about that, where he was like, "Have you read some of the lyrics that you guys are often like raising your hand in anthemic love and stuff like that?" And he, not only that, "The River," "Darkness at the Edge of Town," like there's a whole series of them where there's so much pain in his life and in this country, and he captures it so well. And so he really is maybe the guy that found a way to make that stuff palatable, that we're really willing to listen and even sing along to it. And only when you realize that he has celebratory songs. She's the One, and I'm trying to think Rosalita. But even that is, my dad says that if I become a rock and roller, he's going to disown me. That's not the happiest lyric around, you know what I mean? Right. But I got the guitar, and I learned how to make talk. You know what I mean? He's really always had good rebellion in his songs, capturing again the teenage spirit of it. And then he actually grew up, and as an adult had some very adult, like, man, Nebraska is as bleak an album as you can get. I think it might be one of his least selling because it really was mostly acoustic, and even the topic was bleak. It was about being like out in the Dust Bowl, no hope. You know what I mean?
So I had a conversation with some friends at one point. A lot of people point to Bruce Springsteen as like the spirit of America music and artist, but a bunch of these people were saying, no, to me, it's more John Mellencamp. He's more of my spirit of America artist that I listen to. So yeah, that's an interesting, I never thought of it, but they're very much similar in that way with their music.
So how would I differentiate that? Springsteen is kind of like the New Jersey version of America, and Mellencamp is the Indiana, the Midwest version. East Coast, Midwest. You know what I mean? That there's a difference as to what are you escaping from, or what's the biggest problems going on. When Mellencamp sings about Scarecrow, about farm foreclosures and stuff like that, really wasn't a New Jersey phenomenon. You know what I mean? They each have their strengths and something. There's a lot of crossover because America has a lot of problems everywhere. You know what I mean?
My opinion, what I say, they're both wonderful. Just listen to both. You're good.
Absolutely. How are you picking between?
Yeah.
Remember, Mullican has a song called Paper and Fire that
Yeah.
has that great little weep, 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 whatever that little riff is on mandolin or something like that. It's piercing. And ordinarily it'd be like, oh, well, I don't need to hear that a lot because it's so piercing. And yet it lends such energy and urgency and frantic nature to that song that it's just, some people know how to pick out exactly the right synthesized sound or exactly the right different tuning on a guitar so that it sounds discordant a little bit, and that's what they're trying to capture in the song. Anyway,
they're both very reflective of Americana. You can say that, if nothing else.
Exactly. I regularly, more so with Springsteen than with Mellencamp, I will start with his first album and I'll listen to him all the way through because I love seeing the growth of him as an artist and the travelogue of America, the history of America written in what he was writing about and his personal life when he was in love and then not in love and then back in love. There's different kinds of songs. Boy, how can you be like, he was divorced and then remarried. He got his Rumble doll, finally Patti Scialfa, and he got together. But Juliet, right? I think not Lewis. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, how do you fall in love with Bruce Springsteen and then fall out? I know that he's not only the person he is on stage. Everybody has. I'm not always me. I have different versions of me and stuff like that. And yet, that's just so sad that everybody else that America would hold up to as like the hero. He writes great music. What a life. He was his own man. He did not sell out. He did this and this. And then you find out, yeah, but he had broken hearts too. He had lost love too. And maybe that's the way it had to be almost for him to be able to write about that. He had lost love early on and stuff. I don't even know where I'm going, except it humanizes him even more to me that he didn't have a perfect life. He had some dings in his life. You find out that somebody got cancer and recovered. It's like he really understands mortality now in a way that he couldn't have before. You know what I mean? So anyway.
The fact that him and Obama hang out is just the coolest thing to me.
Exactly. I have good friends, Warren and Wendy, that have loved Springsteen all their lives. We actually got him as a concert at Champaign-Urbana, and Star Course, the student-run organization that did concerts, we got to run stage crew, backstage stuff.
Nice.
And Warren was so unbelievably happy that he got a chance to meet the man. And it wasn't only then. He's one of the guys who will like find out what hotel Springsteen is staying at and go and hang out there. And after a while, they recognize him. That is, Bruce recognizes Warren and says, hey, you want to talk for a while? And so they had a chance where they like went and laid down on a grassy knoll, not that one. And like, how cool is that he was so cool with his fans, and that Warren and Wendy really did all the right things, not worshipful stuff and not please sign this so I can sell it on eBay, that they really have been like, tell me about this latest lyric, tell me about what's going on. And they were friends. They became friends. How cool is that?
That's very cool.
It happens with some people that remove that you have to have as a rock star. Some people let it drop and are regular people too. So hats off to Warren and Wendy, wonderful friends of mine, and hats off to the boss for being so human. Yeah.
So you mentioned listening to the albums all the way through, that OCD starting at the beginning. My son has that a lot, and he's done it with many things. And we were talking this weekend, like Batman. He said, I want to read Batman. So he sat down and researched to get every Batman title and when they appeared, blah, 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 and then found them all one way or another. He's got like the DC Online Infinite. He has a bunch himself. He's bought omnibuses. And so just tried to collect everything. There might have been a few great
pass going all the way back to 39 through the 40.
And he read them all. He cataloged it and marked them and read them all.
I've never done that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Many things since I was alive, which would have been 59 and on, did I delve back into the 30s and 40s? Not at all near completely.
He's definitely showing his OCD there. He did the same with Green Lantern. And he's just, so now his new thing, he's discovered some of the pulps, and he has taken all my Conan, my books and my comics, both the Robert Howard and the Lynn Carter and the Sprague and all those others.
Sprague de Camp, exactly.
And along with that, John Carter of Mars and Call and Solomon Kane. And so that brings up this weekend, we were down at PulpFest, ran into friends of the show, Jim Beard and John Bruning. They both had their thing there, and I got a bunch of their books. I think I've got almost all their books now. So they got to keep coming out with more. I'm not
They sold out of the Six Gun, the new Westerns anthology. They sold out. That's
sold
fantastic.
out. Yeah.
Very good.
So we were down there. So Colin was looking for all the Conan stuff, and he got quite a large chunk of it. And this is the place to go. The funny thing was, we were looking around. He's like, I think I'm the youngest person here.
Honestly, if you're at a pulp con, it really is. When were they published? 30s through the 50s.
Yeah.
You're already talking. And even the things you're mentioning, when you're looking for Conan and Tarzan and Nick Carter and like the original publishings of those, that isn't recent. That's 100 years gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 90 years.
There's a ton of reprints of all that stuff through the years. And so
I have the Lancer paperbacks for Conan, for instance, which are like first publishing a non-pulp form, if I remember correctly. And those are distinctive because they got all the Frazetta covers.
Yeah.
Wonder they left off the shelves, because those are some excellent painting for those covers. Okay.
So my big find was I got almost a full set of the Edgar Rice Burroughs Tarzan. The prices range greatly. There's some places that definitely have collector available items that are going for good money in bags, and they look mint perfect and all that. I wasn't that interested. I wasn't even really go buy anything like that because, like I told Colin, I said, nothing against any of these guys, but Gutenberg Project has all the Tarzan stuff if I want it digitally. And then I'm not cluttering up the house anymore.
Yeah.
But
there's something about sitting there with a book, reading in bed with a book.
There is that OCD thing kicks in again too. So, oh, look, they've got number 3 for $4. That's great. Well, now I got to get 1 and 2, and oh, there's 20 more to get. I can't get just 1 or 2. It's very difficult. So I either got to not do any of them or whatever. I ran into the one place, they were just trying to sell a bunch of used books.
Unload them. Exactly.
Yeah. And I found one of Bill's books that I didn't have, Star Carrier like 9, I think, or something.
Okay. Keith, friend of the show, everyone. Bill Keith writes great military sci-fi. Okay.
Well, I'll see him in a month. That'll be nice. But so I was just looking through and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's almost the complete run of Tarzan with the Neil Adam covers. So I was like, oh, and the guy goes, yeah, we're about to have a big sale. I'm like, what do you mean a big sale? Because they were already $1 a book. And he says a whole basket they had made up for $10. Oh, really? When are you doing that? He says, oh, like right now. I says, okay. So
right. Shoomp.
Yeah, they were already all in the one box. So I just took it and it had a bunch of Acer double books that
I have a bunch of those. And honestly, I didn't buy those, all of them, but I looked for certain things because that's where the first works, the first appearance of a character or that kind of stuff. A lot of them are first feature as a tryout in the Ace doubles.
Yes.
And you explain this online, but for those who don't know, an Ace double it's a paperback, but it's actually 2 books and you read one and then you flip it over. Printed upside down the other way is the second book. So they can be this thick, but it's actually kind of like 2 paperbacks joined together.
Yeah, and they're a little squat. They're cute.
The theory was that, hey, we aren't sure about these 2 authors. Some people will say one of these 2 has to be good for 75 cents. Back then when paperbacks were like 50, 60, 75 cents, that
2
was a
stories.
2 fantastic novels for 50 cents. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, I wasn't going to buy Edgar Rice Burroughs, but for $10, and I think I need 27 and then the last 2. And that's it. Or 17 and the last 2, 26, 27 or something.
Yeah. I just read my first Travis McGee book.
Okay.
McDonald, and he's been gone from 96. He's gone already 25 years plus. And yet he wrote, I think, like 50 Travis McGee books or novelettes that might have appeared and stuff like that. I think there's 27 maybe. And of course, the reason that you and I say those numbers is because I know that I'm going to have to get them all now. And it's like you say it as OCD, but I always thought that was just the collector's gene. That you just want, if you have something, you want to have 1 to N of it.
Yes.
It's a river novel, as they sometimes call it. And I don't want just this little tiny bend of the river. I want the whole thing. I want to see how it started and how it ends.
I guess it's a point of view thing. Depends who you're talking to. If you're in that room, it's a collector thing. If you're laying on your analyst couch, it's an OCD thing.
I guess that's it. So having said that, I bought one from Amazon that's like an older version of it, but was in fantastic condition. and they're hard to find. Most of them have the breaks in the spine and they're reader copies, they're chewed on and stuff. And what I thought was, I know I'm going to have problems finding everything else in equal condition, so I'm faced with what you just did. I'm going to get not only the regular form paperback, but they reissued them as like quality paper, no, mass market paperbacks, quality paperbacks. I've lost the different names they use for these various different things. And when they reissued them, they have united covers. They all look the same. And so maybe that's how I'm going to get all the rest, if I can find them not for $15, but for $5. And I'll just say, oh, if I line them up on the shelf, they're not going to be a perfect set, which is what I like to see. They're going to jump around in terms of what form factor.
Yeah.
But they're good enough that I want to have them all. And having said that, I love when people tell me about that when someone told me about the Prey books by John Sanford, and like when you discover, oh, there's not just one, there's 30. I get to go haunt the bookstores. I get to go on Amazon. I get to go find a good copy of all of these things and make them my own. And in fact, when I saw this copy of the first Travis McGee book is so nice, but what I said to myself was, this is the joy that someone's going to get when they buy my books. Because I've got things I'm 64. I just hit 64. Today's my birthday.
Woo-hoo.
And I have things that have got to be 54 years old that are in fantastic shape. So they've made it half a century without a break in the spine, without a dog ear.
Wow.
Maybe the edge of the pages might have changed color a little bit because they're exposed to the air. But you look open, it's like a little bit, but they're clean white pages inside. Someone's going to be really happy with my James Bonds, my Doc Savages, my Perry Rodans, my all those things that I was buying when I was young, my Mad Magazine paperbacks. Right. Fucking ecstatic when they see my collection.
Absolutely, yeah. so if anybody's taking notes and big collections, let me tell you about Mac Bolan, the Executioner.
Like that. I know I bought at least the first 120 or something like that, as well as Able Team and Phoenix Force, which were spin-offs of his. And hey, speaking of what was good back in the 70s and 80s, there were tons of these men's adventure paperbacks coming out. And I didn't just get Mac Bolan. I got, in fact, even better, The Destroyer, the Remo Williams saga.
Yes.
Are fantastic. Death Merchant was pretty good. The Smuggler. There's probably 20 different series that I got that were variations on. Guy used to be in the army, now he fights. Yeah. He's going to kill all the mafia, or he's going to stop all the human traffickers, or whatever else it might be. Sometimes anti-heroes were like, especially the Punisher, that is the version of the Executioner that Marvel did. He's a madman. He's not really a noble guy. He's kind of, I'm going to kill a lot of people, and thank God I'm killing the right ones. I'm killing the criminals. But he didn't really care about collateral damage. He wouldn't fight Captain America. There's a fun fact to know and tell. Who's the only Marvel guy that the Punisher would not fight? Captain America, because he believed in him. You know what I mean? Anyway.
And another to add to that list, the Deathlands series.
Yes, many of those.
Dystopian fun one, which, like a lot of these, obviously, they're all by James Axler, but James Axler is like a different ghostwriter every issue, every one. Same with Mac Bolan. There's 300, 400 of those now, and they've been going on forever.
For a long time, it was Don Pendleton. He really wrote all of them. And then at some point, I think bear with me, Eagle took them over. They were published maybe by Signet or Bantam. I'm trying to think who the publisher was, but then Eagle is the company that started to put out all the spin-offs and everything. And I think that they did the same thing, that it wasn't just Don Pendleton anymore. It was ghostwriters of various different kinds, though Don Pendleton's name might have stayed on the cover.
They do that a lot.
Kenneth Robeson was never Kenneth Robeson for Doc Savage. It was Lester Dent for 160 out of the 181 of those. I think Maxwell Grant was mostly Walter Gibson for The Shadow, and there's 600 of those. And I've everything that's ever been published as a paperback, I have of The Shadow, and they've taken multiple runs at it, but I've never seen the effort to put all those 600. So if you really want to read the old Shadows, you got to get the pulps.
You got to go to the PulpFest.
Never made that a top. I really will next year. This was a crazy weekend for how many things were going on. PulpFest was going on. Fan Expo, maybe that's this coming weekend in Chicago. There was like multiple. Gen Con was going on in Indianapolis, and man, if you're a geek, like, couldn't you guys talk? Couldn't you not have to make me make a choice as to all these different things going on? But that's in even ever a freer schedule that Colleen and I now have. she's okay once in a while when I've gone and done my pinball fest or my comic book fest or my Progtober fest. Now I'm going to Progstock this year, by the way, so that'll be my
Cool.
Prog dosage. And then she gets to like have the ladies over for tea, take a weekend long bath, whatever it is that ladies get up to when the guys aren't around. She's do all those things.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, Colin had a couple really good finds. He got a couple Green Lantern pages that were the color reference charts that they did.
Right.
So those
At
are,
PulpFest. So they have comic book material. Okay, that's cool. That's
a little bit.
Right.
But the find he was like so excited about was he found some Will Eisner, The Spirit, and it wasn't a book. It wasn't a reprint, nothing like that. It was a newspaper that there were only like 3 newspapers in the world that printed that when it came out on full-size newspaper, and he got a copy of one. So he was so excited because they're like ultra rare. He didn't even know they existed. They were so rare. So
have that happen. Good for him. There's nothing like being a collector when then you go to a fest and you're like, I didn't even know this existed. Of course, I now must have.
yeah.
That's when you talked earlier about the ace doubles. We talked a little bit about this before. There's a whole, these heroes have inspired multiple people because they didn't fall into the public domain, but they have knockoffs. So for instance, Doc Savage has Doc Caliban, and Doc, there's a couple versions of him. There's one where he's like a Celtic hero, Doc Shee, Sidhe. And having said that, Philip Jose Farmer wrote a cool biography of Doc Savage called Doc Savage's Apocalyptic Life. And he actually did a couple books that were continuations of the Doc Savage, but as Doc Caliban, and wove it into that there really are secret societies that have been around forever. And as one of his the big thing that he started was the Wold Newton universe. All those heroes are connected by lineage, by all the way back to the Scarlet Pimpernel and Sherlock Holmes and Doc Savage and Tarzan. Doc Savage and Tarzan are brothers, according to these. And one of those books that I looked for forever was an ace double that had Lord of the Trees on one side and the Mad Goblin on the other. And they were his knockoffs of Lord Greystoke, Tarzan, and Doc Caliban on the other side. And like when I finally found it, I really was like, this is the grail. I've looked for this forever.
Nice.
I love when I knew that existed and I was looking for it, but occasionally there have been things at the Comic-Cons or the pulp shows where, like the first time that I bumped into John Bruning and found out what his company Flinch was doing, okay, Midnight Guardian, akin to the pulps, and he's kind of like the Shadow, the Whistler, that there's any number of people, and I couldn't wait to buy him and read them. And the fact that they proved to be really good was like, I bought another series that was like a science detective, and boy, they weren't as good. They needed an editor.
Is that Sergeant Janus?
That doesn't ring up bell.
No, okay.
And it weren't from Flinch Publishing.
Oh, okay.
Publisher, and a lot of times, I don't know. As soon as I had money, I was a soft touch for. Sure, I want to buy a copy of your book to encourage you to do more and let you fulfill your dream of being an author, a real good selling author and stuff like that. And my discovery is, again, 90% of everything not that good. Once in a while, something was. They had it. They had an idea of how to build suspense. They had an idea of the character has to be like consistent throughout the book. You can't just. It doesn't matter my criticisms. It matters that there's a difference in quality, and you can tell if you've read a lot when something is hollow, it's rushed, it's not, it doesn't hang together, there isn't a good vocabulary, that it's repetitive. You know what I mean? When you read, somebody uses the same the word battle again and again, instead of, how about maybe a couple thesaurus words, so you could say a struggle or that kind of thing, things that matter to me in terms of the craft of writing. And some people are just kind of, wow, this is not college level, this is high school, maybe junior high. I'm glad that flame is burning in you to get a story out of you, but maybe you need to go to some of the cool writers workshops that you go to. Own your craft, get better at it, let people who are your friends tell you what's good and what's bad, and be willing to knife the baby and take out the bad parts, rewrite the bad parts, whatever else it might be. PulpFest might be one of those places where you really get more of a taste of that. Maybe any independent book fair is where you get that it's not it's been through multiple sets of eyes and editors, and it's going to be bestseller quality, at least in terms of the editing, spelling, and stuff like that. But and sometimes that also means that it's had the angly good bits chopped off of it, so it'll be the perfect music like we were just talking about. You know what I mean? Sellable novel. I wonder
I was going to say there's a lot of good looking new pulp out there. Besides Flinch Publishing, which has some good stuff, I ran into a guy that had a new pulp King Kong story, and he had a Doc Savage King Kong crossover, and I think Tarzan with some, yeah, which he actually wrote a couple of the short stories that are in a couple of the Flinch anthologies. So that's why I was looking at his stuff more. But I told Colin, I says, these look really great. King Kong, cool. But it's like a 300-page book that's like almost a full sheet of paper size. I'm like, weren't pulps like really thin, short? You know, I mean,
right.
They're not.
They were meant to be disposable, quick fiction.
Yeah. So I'm like, to me, if you want to really capture pulps, you're doing short, punchy stories, not long, drawn-out novels.
That's really true. Is there now a standard for, hey, if it's too flimsy of a book, people won't buy it because they think it's a pamphlet? You know,
yeah, there's all sorts of weirdness with that too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Otherwise, for my birthday, I got the new Tom Papa book. You know what I mean? Sometimes
really?
Stand-up comedians can really be good at their craft on stage, but maybe they're not great writers. Nope. Tom Papa's really a good writer too.
Nice.
I got that one. Boy, I should have opened the show with this. So I got a huge album book of a series. I got the first of 4, and I wanted to try it instead of buying all 4 of them, even though I'm going to have to, called Space Bastards. It's about an intergalactic postal service that the mail will always get through. And of course, when you open up the universe to be, well, this is a hostile to life planet. This is a crime planet. This is a planet about to go nova, almost like Doctor Who-ish type plots. But the characters, the mailmen that do this, apparently, honestly, I bought it without knowing a lot about it, except Derek Robertson does the art. And he did the art for The Boys and various other series that I've really loved. And so I'll have my biggest, most expensive comic book that I bought in a long time is Space Bastards. And so I'm hoping that it's good, because once in a while you do buy a pig in the poke. The artist did the best he could, but if you're not working with Garth Ennis or Warren Ellis or someone great, you're not guaranteed to have the story match the quality of the art, and I'm hoping that it does. So that was a fun thing. And
nice.
What else did I get? I got a pair of lounge pants that have Smucker's things on it. We went down to the Smucker's outlet store, and that's true. In brief, this weekend was like, hey, we went on Brain Freeze. We ate a whole bunch of different ice creams all around Ohio. Yes. And so despite not being able to make it to PulpFest, it's because we had these other cool things going on, and that was fun. We went to a show on Friday night called Once on This Island that was the most fantastic set I've ever seen. They had transformed the stage to look like an island with palm trees and and we had amazing seats. I didn't realize how good of seats I had gotten us. We were right at the front row, and so there's a lot of dancing, and sometimes that can be overwhelming because you're not seeing all the choreography. But boy, when you can see all the expressions and hear all the voices, not just mic'd, but real voices, and see that little trickle of sweat because someone's dancing hard and earning that show, we had such a great time. We knew nothing about it going in, and it was joyful.
Nice.
Which were and like a fable about love and lost love and colonialism and the gods interfering in people's lives, and just for all of that, kind of sounds a little mishmashy, but it really worked. It was entertaining as all hell. And I love one of those shows where you walk out and you're stopping people on the street. I think it's running for a few more weeks. You got to go catch the show. It was great. So if anybody can still see it while it's here in town, or if it actually goes to other cities, Once on This Island, trust me, it's when you see it on the shows and it stands out.
We'll make sure and put a link in the show notes.
Exactly. That's our TV just blew up. We have a Samsung that we've had for a long time, and we're watching something, and all of a sudden, no lie, like a rifle shot.
Wow.
And then the smell of burned electricity. And we were, oh God, please don't set the house on fire.
Yeah.
So we jumped up and we pulled things away so that it didn't have things around it. And then I didn't burst into flames, luckily. So I reached around and without getting shocked to death, was able to pull the plug out. So now the TV, and I think it was the TV as compared to, it wasn't the outlet, because that really would have maybe gone in the walls and everything else. So It's funny, once in a while things start to give you little signs of distress, that they get a little artifact over here or that they get a little fadey.
Yeah.
No, this one gave up the ghost with a very definite
With a bang.
With a bang, exactly that. So then we had to we need a new TV. We're not TV addicts, but it's nice if we're going to have all these Amazon and Netflix. You want to have something to show them on besides your
phone.
Watch things together. Exactly. I don't want to, without going into it a ton, hit consumer reports, hit all kinds of review sites. And the one that I really wanted was the Roku TV from TCL, and it's not available. It's gotten such great reviews that everybody bought them.
Wow.
And so I don't want to wait and it's not even backlogged that you can't sign up and say when one is available. It just says, nope, sold out. So I hate that. So if I got a Roku box, can I get the equivalent of that with the Google TV thing and then still be able to just attach my Roku box to it? Nope. Apparently TCL is making great TVs. So in short, I ended up buying a Hisense one, which was actually a savings of a few bucks. And out of the big 6 TV manufacturers, it's the smallest, but the fastest growing because it's doing good quality type stuff. And wow, it's been 10 years at least since we bought this TV. So you have to learn all the new. Now it's not Ultra HD. Now it's XHD with the 4K and whether it takes ATSC 2 or 3 for what kinds of things you can attach to it, and does it take Dolby or Dolby Atmos or Dolby Vision? And so the big spreadsheet of what factors you're looking for keeps growing. And so after a while, you're like, I'm going to trust some review sites that really seem to be bubbling certain ones up to the top. And that's why I was willing to go with the Hisense without knowing a lot about it, except that it's made in China. And so here's hoping that, nothing against Chinese products, you have a ton of Chinese stuff without knowing you've got Chinese products. I still want there to be availability weirdness that even though I was able to buy it on Amazon, then they're going to come back to me and say, oh, that boat is stuck because of conflicts in the South China Sea, and it's not on the boat that's stuck in the Red Sea when that guy turned sideways and was in the Suez Canal. You know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. So having said that, this is one of those things we talked about this a little bit last or the previous episode. If you really do a little bit of research and make the big decisions, like buying a house, like buying a car, like that kind of thing, you don't worry about candy bars. You don't worry about this costing $2 versus $3. A TV that we're going to have for 10 years, hopefully, and this costs $800. It's not a small thing. You still want to make sure that you get your money's worth. You know what I mean? Oops, I made a mistake. I'll just piss away another $800. But for those who are wondering, just as of August 7, Al did his research, and for what was based on availability and quality and all that kind of stuff, TCL was really looking good. We had a Samsung and it lasted long until the big bang. And as long as we have the Roku box, it doesn't seem to matter whether you're buying Samsung's OS or Google or TV or Apple. We actually looked at the Apple TVs and they're not as flexible. I think I could still attach a Roku to an Apple TV, but there's still a certain amount of premium you pay for Apple devices, and it wasn't enough quality based on to get to the premium that you're willing to pay to get to that. So I'm hoping that when I hook up the Hisense, that I'll be able to say, yep, I made a good bet, as opposed to, I got to rebox this MFer and send it back because.
Let me just comment on that. There's probably people listening that go, $800, I can go to Walmart and get a 75-inch for $127. There is a difference. There's a lag in those. There's colors that get issues. There's just not as bright a quality of picture and all of that.
So it's funny. It really is one of those things where you see the big list of all the different factors. For instance, where we watch is in our TV room, and we don't have to worry about side angle viewing. It really is. We're going to be staring at it from the front. And so things that fade out with quality, LED versus OLED versus QLED and that kind of stuff, whether they're really black and really pop bright colors. If we're not in a well-lit room, almost always we have the shades down while we're watching in that room. So I could dismiss a couple of the factors that if what they're talking about is we've got the most lumens of everything, we don't need that in spades. What I always try to do is buy a future-proof one. I don't want the one that's just come out with new technology. It's going to be superseded soon, or that a lot of times where you can get the bargains is that it's older technology and it isn't the best, but it's half the price. And it's weird. I'm now in my 60s. I really want things that are going to help my eyes, not hurt them. So anything that has motion blur, anything that has where nothing rasters anymore, it's all LED, but where you can see artifacts, the things don't line up perfectly, or that there's a delay, that the refresh rate is still honestly between 60 and 120. And I know that I've been at monitors. You know how you do this? You just kind of look over here, and then you see, if you can see that the monitor is shimmering, it's like that's not a fast enough refresh rate, that it will not give you eye strain over the course of time.
Right.
So all those factors that you just talked about, brightness, and also, for instance, a lot of things were about gaming. I usually don't game on my big TV. I play here up on my silly "Don't Trouble Colleen with It" rig upstairs here in Skynet. And so all the things that they had about gaming capability, and whether it works with the Xbox and the SNES and whatever else is an SNES anyway.
That's 30 years ago.
I was going to say, yeah, exactly. It's who are the biggies now? It doesn't matter. I really could say that doesn't matter as much to me. It matters that I can do both movies and TV shows, and that if they have the 4K and the HDR and whatever, they have kind of separate resolutions and stuff like that, I want it that it's going to automatically do that for me, instead of my having to say, oh, now I'm watching something on Hulu and I got to lower the resolution, or it looks even worse because it's artifacting, because it's trying to convert on the fly. And so I want the smarts of a smart TV to be that it takes care of all those little tunings and choices in the background, and that it's like, if I just put it onto movie mode, if it has different resolutions of movies, it won't be that I regret there's only one movie mode and I really wanted 4, that kind of thing. Like you said, I don't know, there were things that were costing $2,500, and there were things that were costing $300, and whatever that trade-off is of, I really don't want as big a screen as possible if it still looks murky, fuzzy. I need the screen real estate. And in fact, there's even a factor of, where am I going to put that in the room? I want to fit it in between 2 other bookcases. Am I really going to move the bookcases?
You can't move bookcases for TV. That's sacrilegious.
No, exactly.
And you got to look at things like the shielding for the EMI interference, because that makes a difference that we don't even think about. People don't realize you could have a really big TV with really bad electronics that are just blowing out EMI all the time, and your router's there, and you're wondering why you can't get connected and slowing down your speeds. So that is an issue that people don't think about.
Yeah, anything is invisible. You know what I mean? It really was that it glowed when it was getting interference out. So like, don't move it far enough away so that the glow fades to nothing. But they don't have human factor ways of tuning that usually. A little bit about signal strength does drop with the square of the distance. So the farther away you can put things, almost always you'll cure your problems. But you can't have it just leaning up against it. You know what I mean?
Right. So. And I always tell people, when someone asks me, hey, I want a new computer, but I want to make sure it can handle things. And I'm like, trust me, anything you do, any computer's going to handle, you're fine. But then they talk about, I can get this computer, but I want to upgrade the CPU and have the fastest CPU. And I'm like, you're wasting your money, because 90% of the time that CPU is throwing things in memory or waiting for things to come back from memory, or worse, throwing things on the hard drive and waiting for things to come from the hard drive.
100 times slower than any memory.
Yeah. Exactly. So with the new TVs, I tell people, look for a great, nice TV. Doesn't have to be the biggest, but get a good quality sound system if you don't have one. The speakers, that's where they save money a lot, is cheapo speakers. And movies really are enhanced by the sound, by surround, by hearing the little nuances all over.
Exactly. I didn't get that with the TV, but they sold it so that you can get the sound bar that's supposed to be well matched to this TV. But I also know that Roku makes a good sound bar.
Yeah.
Also has then all the capability that it talks to the Roku box in a perfect way. So I'm going to have to find a direct comparison between, or see which one I go with. We currently have a Sony, if I remember right, sound bar, but it's got weirdness in terms of it isn't fully compatible with everything as you change modes. And I don't want to have to reboot my sound bar or change anything within my settings to do that. So as much as I've had this guy also for 10 years, he didn't blow up, but it might be you're just not as compatible because things have gotten better and better over the course of these years. I want my electronics to be take care of me. I want a virtual me, a virtual expert that's good about setting the settings and getting rid of all the problems, and that it does that for me automatically instead of my having to find go in, where's resolution, I've seen sites where they actually have people that are really wonderfully obsessive about this, and they go in and they say, for all these various different kinds of TVs, here's really the optimal settings so that you get good flesh tones. You get
Right.
good, no motion blur when you're watching your Fast and Furious movie or whatever else it might be. You don't want to have the quality of that movie degraded.
Yeah, and some people, the only factor they look at is how big it is.
How big it is.
Yeah, that's it. And then they'll say, hey, I got a good deal on that. It was on sale for $86. It's a 300-inch TV. I'm like, yeah, it looks like crap.
Yeah, hopefully, whenever they have the Black Friday sales and stuff like that, I don't think it's the latest and greatest. Almost always it's the things they're trying to clear from inventory. And honestly, you can get, man, if you can get a fantastically large TV for $300, that really is pretty cool. And yet, in all the ways we're talking about, it might be that you're going to regret your choice when you go over to your friend's house and he spent $500 and it makes yours look a little dated. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So,
all right.
Okay.
So happy birthday, man. Enjoy the rest of your day.
What are we doing tonight? Going to a ball game. The Lake Erie Crushers are playing, no lie, the Washington Wild Things.
All right.
So we'll see about that. And we got a ticket where it's all you can eat hot dogs and hamburgers.
That's dangerous.
So it's not like I need to eat more, but it's for a birthday. It's just so nice to be like, you know what? I feel like a bag of peanuts. Thank you for a bag of peanuts. And so I don't think we're going to gorge ourselves, but it's just going to be like, I feel like a licorice whip. You have licorice whips? That's what I want. We'll see. It's a silly birthday thing to do.
Yeah,
so I'm
good.
going to take a
Enjoy
run at it. Let's see. How much should a hot dog be? $2? I need to eat a dozen hot dogs to get my money's worth. Or something.
Are they $2 at this?
Really, a ballpark hot dog is like $9. So
Yeah.
what am I saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Always a pleasure, Stephen. See,
Yes.
and by next week, let's see, we're going to be in Detroit. So it might be that I'll ask us to bump it onto Wednesday or something like that instead of taking a break while we're in Detroit. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode of Relentless Geekery and that you'll come back every week and listen and join us in our conversation about all the exciting things in the world of geeks and the fun that we have, whether it be music or the movies or comics or role-playing games or board games and video games. We talk about so much and we love having everybody come with us. Please, if you did enjoy the show and you like listening to us each week, give us a review, give us some thumbs up or stars, because that helps other people discover us and helps the podcast grow. And we also are starting to add some geeky, unique t-shirts. If you go to our website, relentlessgeekery.com, you'll see we have a shop with some t-shirts in it. And these are some fun sayings, some fun designs we've had and talked about on the show. You can also get a Relentless Geekery t-shirt. And this would also help support the show, as there are some costs with hosting and the software that we use. So it'd be great if everyone checked that out also. But please, we hope you come back next week and give us a review, pass it off to your friends, let them know. Join us as we talk more about the wonderful world of geekdom.
You have been listening to the Relentless Geekery podcast. Come back next week and join Alan and Steven's conversation on geek topics of the week.